Hello and welcome to another video. This is going to be a short video about a few bits and pieces that I found quite interesting. I suppose this is kind of like the Faces and Places video series that I've done, but these things that I'm going to talk about I've not really covered. It's not going to be a very long video, but I hope you enjoy it. The first place was called the Victoria Sporting Club in Edgware Road in the 1960s. This is how the building is today. It's now called the Grosvenor Casino. The club was owned by New Brighton Tower Limited and was run by a crooked solicitor called Judah Binstock. Judah Binstock had one time acted for the interests of the Messina brothers. The Messina brothers, as you probably know, were five brothers who led a criminal organisation in London from the 1930s to the 1950s. There have been troubles at the club in the 60s and the twins were brought in to sort out the problems, but once they had planted their feet in the club, the straight clientele began to drift away. After an associate of Binstock's was assaulted by the twins or involving someone connected to the twins, Judah Binstock brought in members of the Corsican Mafia to explain to the twins that they should withdraw from the Victoria Sporting Club. So that's what they done. So that ended the twins' interest in this place, but the building's still there and it's now called the Grosvenor Casino. This is the London Hospital Tavern, where in 1954 or 1955 Ronnie Kray stabbed a boxer called Billy Rude. This is claimed by a man called Stan Davis. If it's true or not, we don't really know, but Stan Davis says it happened in this place, and after the incident he went to Saint Raphael with Ronnie, which is in the south of France, and they stayed there for about 5 weeks. This is the London Hospital Tavern building today, so it's still there, but it's now not the London Hospital Tavern. This is Ronnie Marwood, who killed a policeman. I'm sure you all know about this story, but Reggie Kray was supposed to have helped Marwood while he was on the run in the late 1950s. Ronnie Marwood killed PC Raymond Summers. Accounts of the murder vary, but it did happen on the 14th of December 1958. Marwood says that he was walking home when he saw a friend being pushed by a police officer and he went to help, but really it's more than likely that Marwood got involved in a gang fight between the Essex Road and Angel gangs outside of Gray's Dance Hall in Seven Sisters Road. When PC Summers tried to break up the fight, Ronnie Marwood, who had been drinking heavily with his friend Mickey Bloom, they were celebrating Mickey Bloom's first wedding anniversary, but Marwood fatally stabbed PC Summers with a 10-inch knife. Marwood was questioned and then released, and then he went on the run. Reggie Kray later said in a book about hiding Marwood after the incident, "I owed Marwood nothing and I knew he was going to cause me trouble, but despite what they say, there is some kind of honour among thieves, a sort of code of conduct. Right or wrong, I took Marwood in and hid him in a safe place until he was ready to make a run for it." According to Reggie Kray, the police visited him and told him if he gave Marwood up, he could have free rein over his clubs, of which Reggie Kray declined. When the RR club that the twins owned was closed down, Reggie claimed it was because that he had helped Marwood. North London gangster Johnny Nash claims it was him who hid Ronnie Marwood. He said he hid him in a flat in Holloway. On the 27th of January 1959, Ronnie Marwood gave himself up and confessed to the murder of PC Summers. Marwood's defence was that he had been drinking and he did not realise he had a knife in his hand when he pushed PC Summers. Ronnie Marwood was hanged on the 8th of May 1959, and I think there was lots of demonstrations going on about the hanging on the day, but that was Reggie Kray's involvement in the Ronnie Marwood saga, or apparently his involvement. The last thing I want to talk about is a person called Royston Little-Leg Smith, or Roy Smith if you like. He was a dwarf that was supposed to be very close to the twins. He was a pimp and a burglar. He could be seen sitting on a donkey in the Double R Club and singing for the punters. Away from the Krays, he was a wrestler and at one time had a club for dwarfs in Gerrard Street in Soho. Royston Smith claimed in a move called Noughts and Crosses cut the backside of a fellow club owner called Tony Mellor. Frankie Fraser later said of this incident, "I suppose his bum was all that he could reach." I'm sure Royston is mentioned in a few books. I know he's mentioned in the Barmaid's book. Ron would have enjoyed having Royston about. It said that Ronnie had a touch of circus about him. I think Ronnie had some dwarfs around when author John Pearson was with the Twins one night.
He'd have a couple of midgets to come along, you know, because he had a touch of circus, the thing of old East End circus stuff, you see. And these midgets would come and say, hello, they'd say, you know, we're friends of Reggie and Ronnie. If you don't tell the truth about us, we'll kill you. Bang, bang, you see. And the pub would roar with laughter at this.
So we could assume that it was Royston. This is what Royston said about the Twins in his book Little Legs, the Muscle Man of Soho. When I first knew Reggie and Ronnie Kray, they never used to drink very much. They had jobs in those days working for a tailor's down in the East End, and they were more interested in boxing than any villainy. I used to travel with them round the East End, down Mile End. I once saw them step in the ring together. That was the night Ronnie knocked Reggie out in 2 rounds, and shortly after that I went down to Ilford with them, where they had a bare knuckle fight just for fun in Green Park. Then a fellow called Roy Shaw came up with the idea that they should raise money for charity, and they were having these bare knuckle fights with blood all over the place. I was building up my muscles, and when Reggie and Ronnie were youngsters they couldn't get over me. I don't think they ever really set out to go on the wrong side of the law, but once they got into running clubs there was a lot of jealousy. No matter where I was working I kept going back to the East End because the Kray Twins made me welcome. Their mother Violet thought the world of me and I thought the world of her. I had known them all years. We are all the same blood, part gypsy, part Jewish, part mid-European, and I had known them since before they went into the army. I don't know why they liked me so much, but they were all very good to me. The whole family, Violet and their old man Charlie, and their uncles Alf and Joey, their aunts and their grandparents all made me welcome in their homes, invited me in to eat with them. They were good people. That was the great thing about Reggie and Ronnie. They treated me as if I was the same as anyone else. It was like being part of a family. If I was in trouble and wasn't about, they would always phone up to find out where I was and what the matter was. They used to worry about me, and not just me, all of us who were on the firm. The firm still kept meeting in the Grave Maurice right through the 50s and into the 1960s, long after the Twins started opening up their clubs. The first club they had was the Double R, the one that Reggie opened up while Ronnie was banged up. That was close to Bow Road Tube Station, just by the entrance to the post office depot. Reggie chose all the decorations, fitting it out with fancy wallpaper and velvet curtains, with a specially made sign over the door linking the initials together like the Rolls-Royce logo. It became the club to go to at weekends. It was the first club down in the East End that looked like a West End club, and Reggie and later Ronnie would be at the door dressed in dinner jackets or smoking jackets, welcoming the people coming in. It was a good club and there was never any trouble. If I hadn't been around for a few days, a phone call would come through saying that Reggie had left a message for me down at the Double R. That would be a sign that he had been missing me. As soon as I walked in, the barman Alan would hand me an envelope in which there would be a long un, £100. The boys always did that because they would think that you might not come down to the Grave Maurice because you didn't have much bread, and they would never like you to join them without you being able to stand your round. They were very thoughtful and never wanted their friends to be embarrassed, and never gave you money in front of anyone else. So that's what Royston Smith said about the Twins in his book Little Legs, the Muscle Man of Soho. You can still get the book. I think it's quite expensive though to buy like a proper book of it, but there is a Kindle edition for about £2 or £3 on Amazon, and it is worth reading because there is quite a bit about the twins in there. He does have a lot to say about Royston Smith also appeared in a few things as an actor, including the Beatles film, The Magical Mystery Tour. He also was in the Morton Fraser Harmonica Gang in the 1940s, I think that would have been. As you can see on the screen now, that's Royston with the Morton Fraser Harmonica Gang. So Royston Smith was a dwarf that hung around with the twins, and he did live a very colourful life. The last thing I want to mention is the recent death of George Devlin. George Devlin was on the twins' legal team for their 1965 hideaway case, and he also got Ronnie to record conversations with a police officer who was trying to bribe the twins in the 1960s. George Devlin is seen in the background outside of the twins' house in Valence Road in some photographs after the twins' acquittal in 1965 of the hideaway case. His face can be seen in one famous photograph of the twins with their mother Violet and granddad Lee. George Devlin can be seen in between the twins' heads in that photo, just over Violet Kray's right shoulder. So I thought this was worth a mention. That was George Devlin. He died just recently. So that's about it. It's not a very long video, but it's just a few things that I found that were quite interesting that I thought I would share with you. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and that's about it. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I will catch you again in the next video.
I've heard loads of rubbish in the papers and seen all the rest of it, and I tell you what, if the man was alive today, they would be shitting themselves, you know, in case he did ever get out.
Reg all his life had this thing that he had to look after this sick, unstable, identical twin brother, and he did look after him. The only trouble was that the unstable, mentally sick twin was the dominant. If Ronnie hadn't been quite so balmy and hadn't killed George Cornell because he's supposed to have called him the Fat Poof, they'd be stone-rich geezers. They were in most of the frauds in the East End, a lot of protection, a lot of rackets. They really, really didn't need to kill people.